don't have to travel all the way to New England to get pure maple syrup. You can get it right in Ohio, as close as Kinsman in Trumbull County, and from Richard Sutton. Dick Sutton is 28 years old, and he's been in the maple syrup business since he's 10, so he's 18 years in the business. Syrup is one of the most natural foods you can find. No additives, whatever. Bill Bowser, WKBN News in Kinsman, Ohio, awaiting a large stack of pancakes.
Good morning. This little episode here, it's a special episode. I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Dick Sutton had passed away about a year ago, and his son Jared had asked for some old footage we had from our website. And we went digging for it. It took us a while to find it, and we did. It's probably 8 or 9 year old footage. But if any of you have been in the maple industry in Ohio or near the Kinsman area, you know who Dick Sutton is. And Dick, anybody from Kinsman, if I meet him, I say, well, hey, did you collect sap buckets for Dick Sutton? And pretty much anyone in the maple industry from the Kinsman area has probably hauled sap buckets or sap for Dick Sutton. So, you know, he was kind of like that seed of a tree, man. I mean, he would get people into the maple business, loan them buckets, buy their sap, and he just loved the industry. And when Jared asked if we could find that footage, I thought, well, yeah, man, let's see if we can find that. And I just think about how influential he was, especially in folks in that area. If you were in the maple business and still are in the Kinsman area, you've been influenced by Dick Sutton. He is, he was a man that loved the industry. So anyways, I hope you enjoy this. It's a little different of an episode, but yeah, this is for the Sutton family.
Well, I'm Richard Sutton. I was born here in Kinsman in 1943. I have lived in Kinsman Township all my life. I worked for Kinsman Township for about 28 years, and I was a road superintendent here. I have a wife and a daughter and a son, and we're both retired now, and the family, it's a family organization here. We all make maple syrup together. I lived with my grandparents when I was back in the 50s, and my granddad had a wreck down in Kinsman, south of town there, and he passed away. And I started making syrup with them in probably 1952 or 3, and I have made syrup. I started with a small flat pan at my grandparents'. We had a small sugar bush, and then the Corps of Engineers decided they were going to put a Shenango reservoir in, and they took the sugar bush that we had and a lot of the properties. So that knocked us out of the dairying business. We were in the dairying business. I milked cows and knew the whole routine of that. And as I grew up, I bought another producer out up the road and started making it in his sugar house. And we just constantly progressed from there. I built a sugar house at my parents' place. I was single till I was 32. And I went and I bought a big evaporator, well, 2 evaporators actually. I had a 5x16 with a double flue, and that's what we call the back pan on this arch here is a flue pan. They have dropped flues in them, and that boils your sap hard, and it increases the evaporation. So I had 2 5x16 flue pans hooked together and a 6x20, 6 foot wide and 20 foot long evaporator that I ran the sap over into, which upped the production tremendously. And at one time we had over 4,000 buckets on roadside trees only. But Mother Nature has taken a lot of our roadside trees, and the people haven't replaced too many of them. Now, we had a program here in Kinsman that we replaced a couple of hundred trees in our town. And they're all pretty much surviving, only the ones that the weed eater killed. And that's pretty much, then I got married, and I moved up here, and we built this sugar house, this front part, and I bought a brand new evaporator. I sold the rest of it, and this is what we have today. We have a 5x14 with a finisher on the side, and we use a reverse osmosis machine here to separate the water and the sugar. What I say is what used to take us 30 hours, we can do in about 2 with the progress of this new equipment. We used to use old flat pans when I was a kid, and we used nothing but wood. And we'd boil all night and keep adding sap until we got all of it in the pan, and we'd keep cooking it down, and then it would be pretty close to syrup, and we'd pull the fire out from under it and put it in milk cans, take it to the house. And my grandmother used to use cream to clarify it, to take any of the dirt out of it and run it through feed bags that they got at the feed mill. She'd wash them, and we used them as strainers back in the 50s. I can remember even having shirts made out of those feed bags. It was quite a treat. But we've kept progressing through the years, and with modern technology, we sort of eliminated the buckets because of the labor. The kids don't want to work today like we had to work when we were kids. And so we have went to a pipeline, which is a plastic tubing, and it's a 5/16 line, which goes into a 1-inch line, and we use a vacuum. And a vacuum releaser, which we pull the sap out of the woods. It goes into this releaser, and when it gets full on one side, it dumps. It's got a float in there. And it dumps the sap on this side while this side's filling up. And when this side gets full, it's just like flushing your commode. The same thing. Your commode gets full, you flush it again. Well, this thing works on a float basis, and it saves us hours and hours of work and labor. We have a central location that lets us have a central location for all of our collecting. And we use large tanks out at the edge of the road, and we cover them, put a lid on them, and we have these releasers sitting out along the road with the pipe coming right out of the woods into the tanks. And that's how we gather our sap now. That's the difference between the year 2016 and 1953. That's a lot of years difference. We have about right around 4,000 of our own, 3,500, and then we custom boil for, say, you have some trees on your property and you don't have the machines, the evaporators, and so forth, because it's such an expensive hobby to get into. It's not something that you can just do overnight. It's taken me, probably 60 years to get to where I'm at today with the equipment. That it is just so expensive, and because it's always changing. It's modernizing continuously. And if you don't keep up, it's like anything else. If you don't keep up, you're losing out on the valuable time. Okay, it takes 43 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. And different years, the sugar content in the trees is different. And a lot of that I think a lot of it has to do with the minerals in the ground and the hard freeze versus no freeze. And then and I think it varies tremendously with the color of the syrup. Like last year, we didn't make any fancy syrup, a little bit, very little fancy syrup was made last year. The year before last, we couldn't get anything but fancy. Now, don't ask me why. Both years were cold, and Mother Nature just was stubborn about giving up light syrup. But that's about how that end of it goes. Number one, you have to be very clean. You have to process from getting it for the tree into the jug is one of the bigger secrets, and also the type of ground, the type of soil that you have. I think the minerals in the ground vary in the taste of the syrup. And we have a hard clay ground that most of these trees are being tapped on, and it leaves very, very good quality, good flavored maple syrup. We don't keep sap. We hate to hold it over 8 hours. Like when we have the Maple Madness, we try to keep sap for the public to see us boil. Well, we process it so fast that it's hard to judge, how much sap we're going to have. Then once we concentrate it, and what I'm talking about is through the reverse osmosis machine, we take 43-gallon sap and run it through the reverse osmosis machine, and it comes out. We put 2% in, it comes out 15%. And it doesn't take much sap to make a gallon of syrup after we run it through there. Now, once we get this rig going, we process about between 38 and 40 gallon of syrup, finished syrup, an hour. And you can see behind me is one of the drums that we put it in. We try to hot pack all of it into drums, and we can quite a bit for ourselves. And also, when we custom boil, we boil right now, we're boiling for 50%, and you furnish your jugs. And we have a packing room in the back, which we are remodeling today, and we pack it in whatever the people want. If you bring sap in here and you've got 10 gallons of syrup coming, they'll say, give me X amount of number of quarts, X amount number of half gallons, and X number of gallons. And we put it in our containers, or we like them to furnish their own containers, because you can get a fortune tied up in the containers. They're not cheap. And then usually every other day, now like today they bring sap, tomorrow they'll take home what syrup we made the previous day. Usually we have it sitting on a table with their name on it, or in these milk crates ready to go out the door. We bring in a lot of sap ourselves. We have some pretty good help, and We have one problem with our sap in the woods is squirrels. Squirrels drive us nuts, and we call them tubing rats because they chew holes in the pipeline. Well, anytime you get a hole in the pipeline, you don't get any sap out of that line. So we have to constantly check these lines, and they're done daily. We have a fellow that's all he does, young fella, is he has the tools and fittings and tubing, and he goes and checks those lines for us. Okay, I used to have over 4,000 galvanized buckets, and I only have probably 50 left, and I just kept them for keepsakes. My son asked me when I'm going to get rid of them because we don't do buckets no more. I mean, my arm, he says his arms are long enough and mine are old enough. So we're done with the bucket end of it. We have changes all the time in this industry. One company is making a spile. That's a tap that goes in the tree and hooks onto the pipeline that has a ball in it. They call them check valve spouts. And that's a big innovation in the last 5 years to the syrup industry. Now we're using 5/16, and another innovation is Proctor, which is a company that's all they test all of this equipment and so forth, and they're always doing studies on the trees and so forth, and they're going with, I think it's a 3/16 tubing, which is smaller, and the spile, we started out with a spile that was 7/16, like a big old, about as big as your thumb, that we used to drill in the tree. Now it's about the size of a pencil. It's 5/16 and smaller, and some of them are even as small as 1/4 inch. They found we get the same amount of sap out of a 1/4 inch hole as they do a 5/16. That is way easier on a tree, and the tree will heal shut. Well, just like you've got a 1/4 inch there that going from 5/16 to 3/16, and you got there's quite a hole variation in it. It probably at the end of a year's growing season. I haven't tried the new ones, but I'd imagine they'd be pretty well growed back shut. And that's some of the innovations that they have. I hope that my health will stay good, and I can live till I'm 90 to keep making syrup. My son works away, and all of our help works away, and I'm the only one retired now, and hopefully I'll get back the swing of things this spring and make syrup for another 20 years. We drill a new hole every year. We put a new tap. We try to keep it 3 inches away from the old tap or further. And a lot of those taps, I've got some younger trees that we've tapped like 4 or 5 years ago. You can't hardly tell where they were tapped at. You really have to put the old eyeglasses on and look to find out they've healed back up that good. And that's what we like to see. That makes the tree healthy. Another thing on the pipeline is you'll go down the road and you'll see 4 or 5 buckets on a tree. We don't do that with pipeline. No more than 2 taps per tree. And the smaller trees, we only put 1 tap on. And we found we get just as much sap out of 1 or 2 taps as we do 4 and 5, and it makes the tree healthy, and it's going to be there for my granddaughters to tap. And that's one thing that about this pipeline that we found is it's way less taps, and we like that. We like to keep them like about a foot in diameter, and foot, 10 inches a foot. And it just depends how thick they are in the woods. If they're real thick, why, we'll go a little smaller because some of those trees are going to get thin. And anyway, the most of the trees that we tap in these woods are some of them are virgin, have never been the woods have never been cut, and they will not be cut, period. It's a thing that the people that own the woods will never cut the woods. They just leave them. They don't even like you to take firewood out of there. Leave them, go back to Mother Nature. And this is one good thing. There'll be trees there for the next generations to come. And too many of these woods are getting clear cut, and it's just a shame. But we've got to have the trees. It's good for the environment.